This is a Honda XR50 that I bought as part of a package deal along with the two gases behind me.
From Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny. Johnny, you didn't give us all the facts when I made this deal, but we'll talk about that maybe in a different video. This is a kid's bike that's been modified with a lot of aftermarket parts so that an adult could ride it, which I think is kind of a rotten deal for the motorcycle. It's one thing to have a 7-year-old on your back, but quite another to have a 37-year-old on your back, especially if he weighs 200 pounds and has a beer in his hand. It'd be this hand.
Yeah.
Still needs to be able to work the throttle. I would crumple under that kind of pressure, but these little bikes stand up to it. This has been sitting for a while. It runs, but it doesn't run right, and that's what I hope to correct in this video. Before we get started though, I'll give you guys a full tour of the machine so you can be familiar with it. It's a 2003 XR50 made in Japan. The new Honda 50s are made in China, for better or worse. When it was new, this was a 50cc engine, but the factory cylinder has been replaced with an aftermarket one. I don't know the exact displacement, but I think it's around 80 cc's. The only markings on here are the manufacturer. The cylinder, skid plate, front end, exhaust, rear suspension, and rev box are all BBR parts. The factory airbox has been replaced with this foam filter. It's low on grips, but I already ordered a new set. I like the foot pegs. These look like quality parts. Fastway brand foot pegs. They look a little bit crooked though. Check them out from the back. I think that right side's kicked up.
Okay, yeah, I'll say.
So we may have to do something about that. Chain and sprockets still look usable. Front tire is in decent shape, but the back one, that's turned into a Jamba Juice. I have the plastics and seat over here too. Seat has a tear in it, and the rear fender shows evidence of wheelie shenanigans.
It's good. People had fun with it.
Yeah, I agree. There's good memories wrapped up with this bike. So that's the rundown on the XR50. When I bought it, I noticed two problems with the engine. First of all, it puffed out smoke from the tailpipe, which made me think the engine was burning oil. But miraculously, since I've had the motorcycle for a while, started up a few more times, it doesn't smoke anymore.
It quit smoking?
That's tough to do, but that's the way it seems. There's two things I can attribute it to. First of all, I noticed that there was too much oil in the crankcase. So I drained out a few ounces, so it's at the correct level now. Or the piston rings may have been stuck because the motorcycle had been sitting for a while. Now that I've been operating it a little bit more, maybe they loosened up and seal against the cylinder like they should. Whatever the case, I don't think you can deny the evidence. Ready?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Clear as a bell. It doesn't smell like it's burning oil anymore either, which is an improvement from when I started it for you guys a few videos ago. And at that time, I hadn't realized it had too much oil in it. The other problem with this engine is that it doesn't like to idle, and it also is resistant to revving up when I give it gas right off idle. I need to really feather it or the engine will die. So if you look here, if I'm really gentle with the throttle, it'll rev up. But if I just open it, the engine gives up. I can think of a couple possible problems that would cause these symptoms. The carburetor might be dirty, which isn't serious. not really Remus or James either, for that matter.
What if it's Peter?
Then it would be a problem, wouldn't it?
It would.
But an even simpler solution than the carburetor is just a case of bad gas. I don't know how long this fuel's been in here. So I think we should drain it out, replace it with fresh, and try it again. I might get away with a good running pit bike with just about no work, except trying to make jokes.
Well, let's get on with it.
I'll start by turning off the gas and draining the fuel out of the carburetor, and then we'll replace what's in the tank.
What color do you think it's going to be? Ew.
Whoa! I'm surprised it ran at all.
Poor thing.
I think we're looking at the only problem this motorcycle has. That's a lot browner than it should be.
Oh, I can really tell from the side.
How does it, keep your camera there, how does it compare with what we took out of Hard Times? Ready?
Yeah. I think it's worse.
Wow. I'll put some new gas in there. Try it out. Here we go. Sounds about the same.
Oh. That's not.
Didn't die though.
It's improved.
It is improved. It's idling faster now than it was.
I bet you need to clean the carburetor.
I just can't avoid it, can I?
Nope.
We'll do that tomorrow morning. If I thought this carburetor was clean, I could make the engine run better by adjusting the idle and low speed mixture screws. But I don't think it's clean, because when gas is left in the tank long enough to turn brown, there's a chance the fuel in the carburetor has gone beyond the brown liquid stage to the sticky sludge stage, which is the perfect thing for clogging up carburetor jets. In fact, you can see a little bit of it right down here. Hopefully the whole inside of the carburetor doesn't look like that. We'll find out in a minute though. I'll finish removing this, wash off the outside of it, then meet you over at the workbench. Okay, let's see if it's a disaster or a delight in here.
What are you expecting?
A light coating of brown crust is my prediction. How about you?
I think it's going to be more than light. I think there's going to be chunks.
I don't expect it to be extremely bad because the engine did run.
Okay.
I think that's better than either one of us envisioned.
Yeah.
There are a little bit of debris down in the bottom of the bowl, and I imagine one or both of these jets is clogged, and that's probably why the engine doesn't run right. I'll take this apart the rest of the way, clean everything, and let you know what I find. Alright, I got the carburetor disassembled, cleaned all the components, and made sure the orifices in the carburetor body are clear.
You've gotten a lot better at saying that word. It's a word you've struggled with in the past.
I have. Carburetor orifices. Everything looked good here except for the pilot jet and needle guide, which were both partially obstructed. The tools I used were compressed air, gasoline, and stranded wire to get into these tiny little holes. I can put this back together now, starting with the pilot jet. This was pressed into the carburetor, and I don't think it was even meant to be removed, but couldn't figure out a way of thoroughly cleaning it unless I took it out. To help my chances with putting it back in, I'll warm up the carburetor body with the heat gun beforehand.
Maybe you should put the pilot jet in the freezer too.
Yeah.
Contract it down a little.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
The carburetor is hot. Pilot jet is cold. And I know this is going to work because we just did it a minute ago, but there was some confusion about whether or not the camera was on.
Oops.
It went in a lot easier than it came out.
Heavens.
This was the only part of reassembling the carburetor I thought was interesting enough to show. So I'll do the rest of it off camera, put it back on the motorcycle, then we'll see if we did any good. The carburetor's reinstalled, time to check our work. When I start this, I'll let it run on choke for a minute so the engine can warm up. And after I take it off choke, I'm hoping for two things. A steady idle. The fella should be able to set his watch to this engine at idle. And secondarily, when I ask of it with the throttle, it should rev up without hesitation. Every time. How many kicks? We haven't started this since a few days ago when we thought the new gas would fix it.
I feel like 2 3/4.
2 3/4. I'm going with 1 kick.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. Well, it did start.
That.
But it didn't stay running. Ooh. Maybe it doesn't need the choke. No choke. Wow. That sounds much different than it did before, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Alright, so come on in here a little more intimately. It's idling very high. So if we unscrew the idle speed adjustment, that settles it down.
Probably couldn't get fuel before, so they turned it up.
Maybe. Now that's a good idle speed, but it's still kind of a low-beat sound. When I put the carburetor back together, I set both of these screws to the same positions they were in before taking it apart. Now I'll work on the idle mixture adjustment. This is what controls how much fuel the engine is getting at these lower RPMs. If I turn it in, it will give it less fuel, which I think is what it needs. And the idle should clean up. Hear it speed up?
Yeah.
When I hear the engine slow down again, I'll know I went too far. Right there.
Right there.
Yeah. So we'll back it off. Think about there is the sweet spot. Now I can adjust this down even lower. That's a little more like what a Honda 50 should sound like. So I think we've passed the first test. Try to turn the throttle. Yeah. carburetors I've cleaned over the course of my 41 years, but it still makes me smile. Little more adjustment here on the carburetor, and it should be perfect. I'll probably have to fiddle with this a little bit more as the engine warms up, because when an engine is cold, it needs a little bit different mixture of air and fuel than when it's warm. That's the whole point of the choke. Wow. That's so much better though. And still no smoke.
Yeah.
I know it's running good because I feel like I want to try it out now. Before we ride it though, there's a few things it needs. I think we should put some grips on it. These came in the mail. Best grips I could find. And you know what I mean when I say best.
Cheapest.
Got to do what you can just to get by these days. So this grip is a drunk. Doesn't want to go around a bar that doesn't have alcohol.
Why don't you just finish putting on those grips?
Yeah. We've got something to hold on to. Next we'll add a place to sit. This bodywork fastens to the motorcycle with a couple screws underneath the rear fender, 2 screws in front, and a couple of these plastic spread apart fasteners where the shrouds meet the gas tank. Got the bodywork fastened on here, and I think it looks like a motorcycle now.
Just a small one.
Yeah. I noticed when I was editing the clips from earlier, I look like a giant next to this thing. Anybody want a peanut? The last thing I want to do before we take this for a ride is replace the bald back tire. Johnny included a new one when we made our deal. He may have left out relevant information about the transaction, but he did give us a new rear tire for the 50. I like the gold swing arm. Great color, really nice welds, and it even has XR50 stamped on it.
In a playful font.
Yeah. That's period correct. The new version of this motorcycle is called the CRF50. I don't think I could get another one of these swing arms if I wanted to. I really don't have anything else to say, but I'll speed this clip up, so as soon as I finish talking, I'll get the wheel off. Perfect! I think whoever rode this bike had a tendency toward left side donuts. See how it's more worn down over here?
Yeah.
I wonder if he was left-handed.
We'll never know.
I've noticed that the valve stem is tilted to the side. This is from the big boys doing things like donuts and burnouts, which exert enough torque on the rim to make it move independently of the tire. Too much of this will rip apart the tube on the inside. Hopefully it's still good. And I'll try not to ruin it taking off and mounting the tires. There's always the possibility of a pinch.
Ooh, no one likes a pinch.
And if that happens, we're in Bonnie Rubble. Trouble! Well, somebody's been in here before. We've got 1, 2, 3 patch jobs.
So far.
4. Final count is 5 patches. So there have been some firmware updates since the original release. Holds air though. I inflated this about an hour ago and it hasn't changed. So I'll put the wheel back together with a new tire, then we'll take it for a spin. Now that the back tire is new, comparatively, the front one looks bald. Maybe we should replace it too. We're on location at my brother's property in the woods, and Camera Girl is going to take the XR50 with the big bore kit on its first ride. She's never ridden a motorcycle like this before. It has an automatic clutch, which means you don't need to worry about your left hand doing anything. You just put it in gear, turn the throttle, and if everything's working correctly, it should go. We haven't tested out the functionality of the transmission yet. I've already warmed it up, so it shouldn't be a hassle to get it started. I have 2 disclosures to tell you guys. Number 1, I wasn't able to make the old tube work in here. Just like I predicted, as I was working the tire onto the rim, I put another hole in that tube, and rather than make it an even half dozen patches, we bought a new tube. I also noticed that when I started it just a few minutes ago, first start of the day, right after unloading, there was a little puff of smoke from the exhaust. I didn't have the camera on, but I'd like you guys to see what I saw. So here's a clip of the next time we cold start the bike. Okay, it's the day after our forest adventure now. Haven't started this since then. Let's see if we can duplicate what happened yesterday. Got the camera on the tailpipe.
Yep.
It should start on the first kick.
That don't smoke.
Nothing. I thought I caught you yesterday. You think it's sneaking?
Might be sneaking.
My gut feeling is the engine is solid, but it might be right on the edge of needing new piston rings or maybe valve stem seals. But for now, we'll run it. Back to the first ride. Got your GoPro on?
I think so.
Shouldn't have to give it much, if any, gas. So unlike traditional motorcycles, the gear shift pattern on this is neutral at the bottom, first, second, and third, all up from neutral.
Okay.
The engine sounds a little more rattly than I'd like. Not sure if that's normal. All right, ready when you are.
Okay, so it's not gonna go very fast. I'm not used to something like this. Kind of muddy.
Get it!
Kind of slippery out here.
Just between me and you guys, what I'm doing here is trying to demonstrate what I believe is the magic of a pit bike or a mini bike or any small play motorcycle. And that magic is the friendliness and the approachability of those machines. They're unintimidating. The only reason Camera Girl rides a motorcycle is because I like motorcycles. She is a saint that way. She would never ride a motorcycle if they weren't an interest of mine.
Ooh, blackberry bush.
So if she's having a genuine, natural, good time right now, it will show what a special effect this type of motorcycle has on people.
Oops.
Were you able to go through all the gears?
Oh yeah, it seems very, I guess, low geared.
Low geared.
Yeah, low geared.
First gear is pretty much a walking pace.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little slippery out here too. It's so little, it's so cute.
I have to admit to you, I was having a confidential conversation with the viewers about this type of motorcycle and sometimes the effect that they have on people. And you kind of verified what I was saying. Do you feel scared?
No.
Do you feel intimidated?
No.
Do you usually feel those two emotions when you ride a motorcycle?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It doesn't seem built for the rocks and mud particularly, but yeah, it's fun.
We did get some rain yesterday, so we might be able to put this knobby rear tire to good use. Here's a question for you to test your adventurous side. Do you think you could go down that hill and back up again?
I think so. The viewers don't know how unadventurous I am.
Right. Would you say very unadventurous?
Very, yes. Very little adventure here.
The XR50 and more recently CRF50 are both direct successors of the original Honda Z50 mini bike, which was introduced in 1967. People called those monkey bikes. I think that's because when you see your girl riding one, she looks so adorable that you lose your head, start acting like a monkey. You made it back up out of that holler.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good. Runs a lot better than it did when we began. Right off idle. Revs up without hesitation. What's your overall impression?
Oh, it's pretty cute. It's pretty fun.
Good. Are you going to let me sell it?
I think I like the KX100 better. So yes.
Even though this one has the friendly factor.
Yeah, it is awful cute, but I don't know. When our kid rides it, he's gonna have a hard time letting it go.
That might tip the scales.
Yeah.
If I sell it, I plan on selling it to one of you guys. And I'll ask you right now, what do you think we should do to the motorcycle at this point? Should we leave it alone and sell it as is? Should we upgrade it? Should we make it look pretty? Should we do a top end job? Just to be sure the engine's running at its top performance potential. Regardless of where the project goes from here though, it's a neat little bike.
You ready to take it for a spin?
Almost. There's one more thing I want to talk about. When I introduced you guys to this motorcycle, I mentioned that I hadn't decided on a name for it. I got a lot of comments about what we should name it, but there was a clear winner. What's its name?
Bieber.
Bieber. For two reasons. First of all, that's how you pronounce this word. Bieber. And as Corporal Clegg says, it's small, cute, muscly. Chicks want their turn with it. Young guys think it's cool. It gets around, etc. It's the perfect name.
It's perfect.
If you want to see the next video about this motorcycle, as soon as it exists, I will put a link to it up on the screen. Thanks for watching. It's got the power.